Howdy, everyone. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Today's episode, we've got an Indiana Jones crazy adventure experimental thing for you today.
Really?
Huh?
Really?
Well, we got mysterious caves, findings in mountains, Nazi occult findings, and mysterious skulls with potential alien origin.
Oh, wow. I should have worn my safari style outfit.
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever seen Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, it's kind of very much like that.
Yeah, that's
And
what I was thinking. But missed out. I didn't get
the memo?
Yeah.
I mean, I told her last week in the podcast, which was actually yesterday, because we're recording this
You didn't say
back
it
to
was
back.
Indiana Jones themed, because I would have loved that.
Well, it's not Indiana Jones themed.
Okay.
It's just, anyway, I just wanted an excuse to wear my hat.
Yeah. We love your cowboy hat.
$12 on Amazon. Anywho, the only way you can find non-vegan leather.
You mean vegan leather, not non-vegan leather.
Vegan leather, yeah. All right. So I began doing the research for the last episode, and finding mysterious beings, and I came across these skulls, which we will get into in a little bit. But as I was exploring the skulls, the region where they were found came up in my research, and it turns out that this region is really a hot spot for a bunch of different things. Like a whole amount of UFO sightings have been seen here, all these experiments. There was a road that connected Germany and World War II tunnels, Russian and German tunnels through these mountains. Apparently it's entrance that some of the caves are said to be an entrance to inner Earth. There's all this kind of stuff surrounding this area. And this area is called the Caucasus Mountains. And you can see it's on the border of the Black Sea. And yeah, here it is now. And before we get into our occult and mysterious stuff, kind of wanted to set a little bit of a backdrop of this area, because the research that we'll be diving into is quite many years back, and then recently that they've discovered some megalithic structures as well in these mountains, which is really
Good old
interesting.
megalithic structures. Very
I love my
Graham
megalithic.
Hancock.
I love my megalithic structures. So, the Western Caucasus, extending over 270,000 acres of the extreme western end of the Caucasus Mountains, and located 50 kilometers northeast of the Black Sea, is one of the few large mountain areas of Europe that has not experienced significant human impact. It's really beautiful, there's pristine landscape, and thousands of ancient megalithic structures built many thousands of years ago. Archaeologists have no freaking clue who built them, where the stones came from, or what their true purpose was, leading to a lot of speculation in the scientific community. The Russians call the megalithic structures dolmens, which means portal tomb. Go investigate that tomb. Tag you along. You want to come along, babe?
Oh, yeah, baby.
Go investigate those portal tombs. But despite the name, there's no solid evidence that their original purpose was for burial. Archaeologists put their age at 4,000 to 6,000 years, though some can date them back to 12,000 years ago, and even to 20,000. So there's a bit of a debate, as there always is in the age of things, when it comes to archaeological evidence. But the stuff that they were basing it on was the pottery found in the vicinity of the dolmens, as well as some human remains. But there's no way to prove if these human remains and pottery came after and they kind of settled in this area where the megalithic stone structures were, because they don't have any evidence that supports that the people who lived there actually knew how to build. The remains that they found actually were at a technological level that knew how to build these megalithic structures. So, like many of the megalithic structures in the past, it could have been that settlers found these megalithic structures and settled around there, but that they were pre-built beforehand. It's still not known who built them. And while there are tens of thousands of known dolmens throughout the world, particularly throughout Europe, the Caucasian dolmens represent a unique type of prehistoric history, built with precisely dressed cyclopic stone blocks. The stones were, for example, shaped into 90-degree angles to be used as corners, and all of them are punctuated with a portal in the center of the facade. While round holes are the most common, squares have also been found. Stone plugs have been found at almost every tomb and were used to block the portal at the front. So these circles are like perfectly formed.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that you think you'd need a tool to create that.
Yeah.
But it dates back before like the kind of tools we see today that create perfect circles in things like metal and stone and wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really impressive.
In the front of the facade is a court that usually extends out, creating an area where rituals are believed to have taken place. The court is usually outlined by large stone walls, sometimes over 1 meter high. It is in this area that bronze and Iron Age pottery has been found, along with human remains, bronze tools, and ornaments made from silver, gold, or precious stones. So here's a photo of one of the dolmens and the surrounding stones. So what is something notable is that some of the dolmens, the rocks and stones are much larger, and then the surrounding brickwork is much smaller. So it could be an addition. Approximately 3,000 of these megalithic monuments are known in the Western Caucasus, but more are constantly being found. So over 3,000, and they keep finding more. The average weight of each structure is from 15 to 30 tons, yet there is not even the slightest trace of a quarry in the Western Caucasus, nor have any paths been found with evidence of heavy loads having been brought to the built site. The construction itself is so awe-inspiring that within most of the Dolomites, the huge stone plates join each other precisely with specifically made grooves. The joint places are so close in places that it's impossible to even slide a knife blade between the plates. In 2007, it was decided to reconstruct a dolmen from the stone plates of destroyed structures in Gelenzich and carry out the processing and fitting with high-precision electric tools. Despite the help of modern technology, the builders were unable to achieve the same level of precision as the original builders. And that's what always baffles people today. It's like, we have an idea of history, we have an idea that, we're at a certain level, but then when we can't reproduce what these people were doing thousands and thousands of years ago.
Yeah, makes you think of a more advanced past civilization.
Yeah, exactly. So, who are the people who achieved such precision in construction? According to the Vladimir Markovin, an archaeologist who has devoted much of his life to studying the Caucasian dolmens, the people at the time lived in mud huts and had no knowledge of iron or the pottery wheel, and cultivated land with hoes. Yet they still had constructions whose design is impressive even by modern standards. And I think he's kind of implying maybe these people didn't build them, and they didn't even live in mud huts. I mean, they just only lived in mud huts, but then how could they achieve that at the same time? Many locals will tell you the legends of the dwarves who once settled in the area. People who were so tiny that they used hares for riding, and just like in fairy tales, they lived alongside giants who built stone dwellings for their feeble neighbors so that they could take shelters in bad weather. However, the giants were not repaid for their kindness. In order to tame the giants, the little people blinded them and gave them mind-altering herbs. the giants began to lose their minds, unleashed war and carnage, resulting in mass extinction of both the dwarves and the giants, with only the stone houses remaining. So that's obviously the legend.
Yeah. I don't know about that one.
That's cool. The little... It's a story that's told amongst the people to try and explain this.
Yeah.
Know? But it's funny to think of these little dwarves giving giants
Yeah.
hallucinogenic mushrooms. And then
Mind-altering.
Yeah.
It'd be so cool though, like, to be so small that you could ride on the back of a rabbit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In The Lord of the Rings, in I think the Hobbit version, there's one of the wizards and he like sits on a sleigh and then he has rabbits pulling the sleigh.
Oh yeah.
Remember that guy?
Yeah.
So, before we get into that, so that's kind of setting the scenario for an ancient history with the Caucasus Mountains. But as I mentioned before, the Caucasus Mountains are a place of both historical importance and, it would seem, a hot spot for paranormal activity and mysterious finds. Perhaps none more mysterious than the finds of an alien skull and Nazi briefcases, news of which appeared online in early 2016. Although the discoveries were not made together, their close proximity raised an eyebrow or two amongst researchers of Nazi secret projects, particularly those of the Ahnenerbe projects that saw the Third Reich invest countless resources and manpower in the search for ancient knowledge and relics. Okay, so amongst Nazi secret societies, the Ahnenerbe is pretty famous. They were tasked during the Nazi regime to find relics like the Holy Grail or like ancient technology.
Interesting.
And they were also tasked with trying to prove the existence of the Aryan race, that there was some sort of supreme alien race that the Germans were descended from.
Oh, right, okay.
So because the Nazis were very occult and esoteric, and they had this belief that there was a superior alien race at one point, and that the Germans were the closest descendants of those beings. So that's what I mean.
Slightly problematic.
Yeah. And that was kind of his excuse to try and eliminate all the other races.
Yeah.
So it was not used well. So the finder of these things and the person responsible for bringing them to the public, his name is Vladimir Melikov. He believes the remains of the skull not only proof of alien contact in the distant past, but that the Nazi regime was actively interested in the remains of technology once utilized by a cosmic race. So, furthermore, as we will look at later, it would appear likely there is a connection between the demon-like skull. Many people, when they saw this skull, thought it was demonic, and perhaps the better-known Paracas skulls discovered in 1928 on the other side of the world in Peru, which we kind of talked about with the elongated skulls. And if that is the case, then it surely does offer proof of alien civilizations and their presence here on Earth thousands of years ago. So the first skull, I think it was called the Tjachov skull. I need to figure out how to pronounce that. So it was called the Bolshoi Tjach skulls. And
Are they the elongated ones?
no, this is the ones that they found in this mountain
Oh, so they
range.
found more than one.
Yeah, they found two alien-looking skulls.
They kind of look like they have horns on
Yeah.
the side.
So one of the articles surrounding it called them the horned skulls. It would appear the discovery of the bizarre skull was made in the summer of 2014 by a team of researchers led by a Russian ethnographer, Vladimir Melikov. The find came to light in a cave in the area around Mount Bolshoi. Mount Bolshoi Tjach in the Adygia region of the Caucasus mountain range. The strange skull had an apparent horned look, leading some to describe it as having a demonic appearance. Initial testing on the skulls suggests they belong to a bipedal species unknown to science. The finding was based on what Malikov says is that the presence of the hole at the bottom of the skull where the spine attaches. So this is why they're thinking it's a bipedal species. There was this hole at the bottom of the skull where the spine attaches, which proves that the creature was walking upright on two legs, because it is very similar to what we have as humans on our skull, where the spine attaches to the skull. There was a couple strange differences about the skull, most notably the horned shape that came out of either side, but it also has a very unusual skull formation. So it does not have a cranial vault as with humans, and that means like a brain vault, a place to store a brain. It also has no jaws. The whole head is one fixed bony enclosure, and the large eye sockets arch back, and then that's when we have the horn-like extensions coming out from the sides. And he sent photos to paleontologists, but they just tried to dismiss it as a ram skull that had been exposed to different weather conditions. But when you actually look at a ram skull, and I'll put a ram skull up here in comparison to that, I really don't see how the two could have, how they're any similar at all.
Can't they test it for DNA?
Yeah, I don't know. I think...
And see if it has like the DNA of a ram or...
Yeah. Well, they did do a little bit of testing, and they found that it was around 4,000 years old. So, yeah. And the find fuels, and we'll go into a bit of the more differences, kind of comparing some side-by-side images of the skull and a human skull. But the find further fuels speculation of an unknown species that possibly calls the cave systems of the Caucasus Mountains and unknown reaches of the inner Earth home. So, people have been thinking like, are the caves of the Caucasus linked to some sort of inner Earth because of this strange skull that they found?
It's strange, like that. There's no brain space. So that's really thrown me.
Yeah. So I kind of imagined that perhaps maybe this alien had some sort of like cartilage sac between the horns, and I'll show you a drawing that I did a bit later to kind of imagine it. But yeah, so it also raises the claims made by many researchers over the second half of the 20th century that Hitler and the Nazi regime were actively utilizing advanced alien technology, and that their search for ancient relics and knowledge may have been far more successful than many might imagine. Melikov himself believes the remains belong to an alien species that visited Earth in the past. Also an experienced cryptozoologist, Melikov would point to the round hole at the bottom of the head and how its positioning showed the creature moved on two legs. He would also note the strange absence of the cranial vault. The eyes would appear to be unusually large, while two separate markings above the eyes would suggest the presence of horns. This in spite of the flat facial bones, typically of hominids. So, an already mysterious find would soon take an intriguing, if dark, twist. So this is where we can kind of go... There's this website, and they did a great comparison. So the skulls are currently being exhibited in a museum in Russia. And he has a lot of other Nazi artifacts within this museum. But the skulls have been tested and have been proven to be bone. So they are legitimate skulls. But where they come from is unknown. And in the following pictures, you'll see two skulls. The top skull has gained the most attention, but the bottom skull is also very different.
I feel like the bottom skull is more...
And that's the one that I drew inspiration from.
Yeah, I
feel
like that to me is the top one looks more like it could be like possibly an animal. But
Yeah.
the bottom one, really, I don't know. It's like, because it wouldn't even, I don't know how horns work, but like they wouldn't look so smoothly attached to the skull like that, right? I don't know.
Well, they're saying that this...
Have you got any like ram skulls to look at?
I can try and pull it up. Let's see. So what they're saying is that, you know, it's not actually, those aren't horns, they're horned-like, you know, but
Yeah.
he was saying that the horns would have attached, if they had horns, it would be on these little holes that are in the here, like above the eye sockets. But this is actually part of the skull itself.
Yeah.
It's not an external horn bone or anything. So if the internet works and we look up a ram skull,
You see what I mean?
it's
Like
so
the,
different.
The
So
bone
different.
part, that's what I was imagining, like the bone part. It's not the same type of bone as the skull. It's like got a different colour.
Yeah.
Put ram on the screen now so
Yeah.
everyone can see, like it's not the same. Like
It's not the same.
Also, it's like attached with like a line, you know, like here
Yeah.
it has these, it's almost, it's not like smoothly attached, like smoothly just a part of the skull, is it?
No.
Like it's like attached to a part of the skull.
And when you look at a ram skull, it's just so different. The eyes are on the side of the head. The mouth is very different. There's evidence of a jaw and a structure there. The nose, you know, it's very elongated, where the skull that we have here is face forward, eyes forward, nose, nostril holes right below the eyes, very similar to what a human would look like. And if we found just one of the skulls, then maybe, okay, there's some sort of anomaly. But the fact that you find two, and they're so similar, there are some obvious differences.
Are they
but
found in different areas again?
No, they were found in the
Same area.
same place. So we'll look through these, and you can obviously see the structures of the bones here and the comparison to a human skull. So yeah, so the eyes are facing forward, suggesting a predator type being, because those with eyes on the side are normally, you know, prey like. And the eye cavity is stretched out. You know, it's quite oval shape almost, and not as round as with humans. Its edge is not smooth but undulating. Has these ridges you can see here.
That could be from like damage.
Could be from damage, but they're pretty consistent. You'd have to explain what kind of weathering would have these consistent ripples through both sides of the socket. So especially the top part of the eye cavity rim has a sawtooth edge. Could be some sort of being with, I don't know. The nose holes are very small and square. In a human skull, those nose holes are larger and triangular in shape, and the two holes underneath the nose holes on either side have a channel running upwards and sideways. Are these additional air passages or places where a strong muscle was attached? Here's a side view of the skull. The face goes straight down and arches backwards at the bottom. So there's obviously a suture here. You can see that's a skull suture like what we have. But what's strange is that there's no lower jaw as with humans. The whole head is made up of skull plates fused together at the sutures. From a bottom view, you can see that the eye cavity is huge, really, really wide compared to a human. And at the very bottom is an opening. Could this be a small mouth part? If it is a mouth, then the being did not bite or chew, but could only have sucked in its food. And that's where I kind of imagined, got quite inspired by it. And I did like a little drawing here of, so here's like the skull, this is the bottom skull, and then what I kind of imagined based on the description.
It's not in, the microphone's not in the way, is it?
Oh yeah, here. But I'll put a real photo up on the screen.
Cool.
So Yeah, I kind of imagine, like, you know how an octopus, they have this like beak, and you know they eat their prey through a small hole in their mouth. I was thinking perhaps it's has some sort of mechanism like that and has external appendages to help it, you know, position the food.
Yeah.
So I kind of imagined it with these tentacly like things. And you can see I made the different holes for potential breathing or, you know, tasting and different mechanisms. And I gave him 4 eyes just because of those really huge eye sockets. But you could also imagine two giant
big
eyes.
Alien eyes. Like if you think of the typical image of a grey, like they have huge eyes compared to the rest of their skull, their face. So like when we was looking at those skulls, I was definitely thinking, oh, this really could be, especially the flat face as well, because you know how they, like in a lot of images of greys, they only have like little like slits for nose, for their nose. They don't have like a nose that comes out. So I think like with the flat face, the huge eyes,
that's very different from a grey skull.
The horn is different, yeah. But I mean, maybe that's like an advanced alien thing, like the flat face, the small nose, the big eyes. Like it's obviously a different type of alien. And I agree with you, like something kind of how you've drawn down here looks similar to what maybe it could.
Yeah, and I had a couple different images. One that started coming out was like, you know, if it had the tentacly thing, then, you know, those fingers, I kind of tried to, you know, make them almost like amphibious in nature with a long neck. But I also had another version of it, which was a bit more brutal, you know, more hulking, sharper fingers. But yeah, this is just completely out of my own imagination because I was quite inspired by it. But
it could also possibly be some type of like extinct ocean creature.
It could be.
Possibly. Like,
yeah, the thing is that is the connection to the spinal column at the base of the skull, like a human, which really only points to bipedal walking figures.
Yeah. Okay.
So
it's just so strange, like that there's no space for a brain. So
yeah, so what I imagined, I didn't draw it in because I actually didn't have time, but maybe some sort of like cartilage brain sac that was
like
almost
when you
like,
see those like cartoons of like with the open brain.
Yeah, with the open brain or something like that. Yeah. So in the rear view, here you can see clearly that the skull arches backward and sideways in 2 parts. It gives the impression of horns, but this is actually all part of the skull. The bottom is wider and has a hole where the spine attaches, and it's very different from a human skull where, I mean, the spine attaches here and kind of through the, you know, behind the jaw, but there's no jaw here. It just like attaches right at the bottom there. But you can see that the spinal shape is different. It's more oval as well compared to this one, which is almost like a soft triangle kind of shape with rounded edges. And here we have the bottom view with the face of the skull is lying down on the table and eye sockets are at the bottom of the picture. You can see the mouth opening at the top of the picture. Look at the strange indentations on the left and right above the holes. So who knows what these parts are too.
Where's the mouth?
Here, I think he's saying that this is the mouth.
That's where the spine
But that's what I'm
goes
thinking.
in.
The spine goes, yeah. So maybe this is the mouth? Here? No, but that looks very small. So here's the lower skull. This is the one that I actually took the inspiration off of. And yeah, you can see they're very similar in many ways, but this one seems to be missing like this middle part compared to this guy who has this whole structure here. This guy's missing that. And the skull also has the 2 sideways extension, but they're kind of a bit more upward than skull 1, and the top parts have been broken off compared to these, which look, you know, rounded, where these ones are like fragmented and split, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, the creature seems to have a big nose, at least a big nose hole. Although the nose holes are still smaller than those of a human, with the ridges around it, the thick dividing bone between the two holes suggest a thick, fleshy nose. Nose holes are also rectangular. It might have had a lower detachable jaw that got lost, but if we're comparing it to the first image, we're not sure, because the first guy really didn't have any. Might be that this part got broken off somehow.
Yeah, like they could have like a jaw that connects. I don't know, that's lost. It somehow connects to that with the skull, but they have no teeth, right? So normally teeth are, they stay with the skull.
Yeah. So in this one, we also find large holes next to the eye cavities, like really big holes, which the person who wrote this is questioning ear holes maybe, or some sort of way to to interpret sound. And compared with the human skull.
Where's the ear holes on the human?
This one?
On the human one. They go in there.
Yeah, maybe. It must go in here or like down there. Yeah, our ears are behind our jawbone, so they're back there. The rear view is very similar to skull 1, and the side view shows clearly the flat head. So that's very interesting. I actually didn't quite notice that when I did my drawing, but these would actually be going flat instead of upwards. So the horns are going backwards. But yeah, very strange, very interesting, and no one is really, what we know from archaeology and paleontology is like a lot of people don't really want to.
Yeah, if it's not like a mainstream thing, because I guess you want to get paid after spending all that money in university, and a lot of this sort of stuff, it isn't supported. You can't get a grant, you can't be paid to study these things, right?
Yeah. So that's really all we've got about the skulls. Some guy just still has it in the museum in Russia. And some tests have been done. Who knows if anything will come out in the future. But that's really all we've got about the skulls. Really cool, really strange, and they raise a lot of questions. I know that there's been some people who are relating this to the Anunnaki. They kind of always...
I always think of the Anunnaki would be more pointy head. Cone head.
No, we don't know.
Elongated head. I don't know, but I don't know. I just feel like, there's a lot more of those elongated heads.
In Syria, the Anunnaki were bigger, but they were always depicted with very bearded. So they've kind of been depicted differently.
Yeah.
And then the people of Anu, which is the Thuade Danann, the Elv episode that we did, people also thought maybe these are ancient progenitors, Anunnaki. And I can't remember, one of our followers made a suggestion that Anunnaki could be used as an umbrella term to...
Yeah, Rochelle from Amethyst Ascension said that,
to talk about many different types of races, so that could be a potential too.
Yeah, I think so.
That the sky people were not just one race of beings, but several. Yeah, so as we said, this mysterious find is also linked with a dark twist, as around 2 years later, a local hermit who called the woodland around Mount Bolshoi Tjach home would approach Melikov. Aware of Melikov's work, the man would hand over a briefcase, itself awash with Nazi symbols and insignia. Inside was a detailed map of the entire Adygea region, which is in this mountain, dated to 1941. According to the hermit, the briefcase was hidden away only a short distance from where Melikov had discovered the alien skulls. Melikov immediately recognized the emblem of the Nazi Ahnenerbe group active from 1935 until the end of the war. And with the official moniker of the Ancestral Heritage Research and Teaching Society, the organization's main focus was the hunting down and capturing of ancient relics and knowledge. Some firmly believed the group, at least those high-ranking members, were actively seeking an entrance to the inner earth and communication with its apparent inhabitants. And perhaps, we might have to do an episode about the Vril Society. And the Vril Society has a lot of links to Antarctica and a potential inner earth entrance in Antarctica.
Ooh.
So we might have to do a follow-up episode with the Vril Society and their link to how Nazi Germany was searching for these occult and paranormal things.
Yeah, there's like a lot of claims from people that the Nazis like actually had, alien technology, and there's been I think military people that have come out and said that they witnessed that back in the war and things, and that's so it doesn't really surprise me.
No.
And also there's the the stuff that Mr. Bird was saying about...
Mr. Bird, Admiral Bird.
Admiral Bird. I can't remember his first name. Was it Brian?
Richard E. Bird.
Richard E. Bird. His story was... Didn't that say that he saw Nazis there at the North Pole?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he actually saw... Yeah, he said he saw on one flight a Nazi thing, and then, that was supported by all this U.S. government funding all these expeditions to Antarctica after that. He also said that he found a race of beings in Antarctica, and this is in his log, which we've covered in previous episodes. Yeah. But in this log, he said one of the spaceships had a, one of those symbols on it, the swastika symbol. But when we think the swastika symbol is cut...
Yeah, they took that.
Yeah. It's not... This symbol was something before.
Yeah.
And it's used through many different cultures, most notably in the Indian cultures and some various branches of Hinduism.
Tons of ancient cultures and stuff. It's shown up in history a lot, that symbol, way before the Nazis claimed it, but now given it a bad name.
Yeah.
And I think it is a shame because a lot of this information is sourced out by, negative people with bad intentions, such as the Nazis and Hitler and governments. When you think of the Bob Schneider stuff and all that research that is being done secretly on these UFO vehicles, and
Bob Lazar.
Oh, Bob Lazar.
Who's Bob Schneider?
He's someone else, isn't he?
Yeah, it rings
my
a bell.
apologies. I'm so bad with names, so I'm sorry. I couldn't say Trey's name for.
Yeah. Couldn't say my name for the first 6 months of our relationship.
No, it wasn't.
It was.
It was a couple of weeks.
It was not a few weeks.
Yeah, he has an unusual name, Trahan.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm really bad at remembering names, but yeah, Bob.
Well, yeah, Bob Lazar was in charge of working on recovered UFO technology in the Area 51 area. Yeah. Not specifically Area 51.
But it's just the fact that they keep that secret from us. It's so top secret. It gives this it feels like there's negative intentions behind what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, if they can,
because they're withholding information from the public, and they're deciding they're babying the public, deciding what's okay. Even now, the footage that the government has released in America about UFO sightings, they've had a lot of this information for years, and they're only just deciding to release it, or a lot of stuff is blacked out. And now, you know, when we look back in history and we see how the Nazis were seeking all this information, trying to find out that to benefit themselves and benefit their agendas. And yeah, it's just such a shame because it brings this like dark cloud over it.
Yeah.
Because you have to go into these sort of sources to actually get information on it. Like,
yeah, and it's not so out of the question to me that the Germans at that time may have found some sort of remnants if the U.S. government have found it as well. You know?
Well, if the stories are true that they were seen in North Pole, Antarctica, sorry, then they did get the technology, didn't they? Because you don't get up there that easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very possible. I mean, I know that there's whole expeditions out there with, like, you know, log evidence that there were entire German bases, military bases
I've heard
in
that
Antarctica.
from a lot of psychics as well. So obviously,
Yeah.
that can only hold so much weight, but it is interesting, like the claims around the Nazis and getting alien technology, like, and this would have been, you know, way back, you know.
Yeah.
So that means it's been around for a lot longer than our lifetimes. Yeah.
So the secret society, the German secret society, Nazi secret society, through the Ahnenerbe group, were searching for some sort of lost technology and link to the Aryan race. And you know, there was a claim from the granddaughter of President Eisenhower, Laura Eisenhower, who claimed recently that things are happening in the background of a, quote, a world most of us don't realize exists. She would also go on to state that the Second World War didn't end, but, quote, was still being fought behind the scenes. It's like this whole other reality is going on that we don't hear about. These timelines and deeper history connected to secret societies, connected to these deeper ET agendas that have been around for thousands of years, end quote. So this is a daughter from, you know, the daughter of the president, and she's obviously got some inside knowledge.
It's believable.
Yeah, there's evidence of persistent Nazi missions within the Caucasus mountain region, as well as the briefcase itself. There were contents inside it. A ring, for example, that would seem to have once belonged to a Nazi soldier or high-ranking party member. There was also a very precise map of the region. Melikov believes that the connection between the two finds is strong, and the Nazi officers were searching the region, probably as a secret mission during the Nazi push towards Moscow, in order to locate both the skulls and any remains of ancient alien technology. Others believe the remains to be neither alien or human, but something demonic. Given the well-documented interest in the occult by many high-ranking Nazi members, perhaps that is not as wild an assertion as it first looks. Could they have potentially opened up a wormhole using these ancient megalithic structures, some sort of gateway or door to another realm? It's all up in the air, but it certainly isn't the only evidence that the Nazis had an interest in the region. Only a short time before Melikov's discovery came the uncovering of another Nazi briefcase with the same Ahnenerbe insignia on it on Mount Elbrus, which is the highest mountain in Europe. And once again, a ring would come to light as well as several Nazi uniforms. Even the remains of a German huntsman was found. Melikov would offer examination of the remains as well as sending detailed pictures of the finds to paleontologists, including ones in Moscow. However, few would show an interest in them, as per usual, with one suggesting the skulls could be sheep remains, like we said before, distorted by pressure over many years. And it's just such a bad explanation, you know? It doesn't look anything
I think at
like
least
a sheep
do
skull.
DNA testing.
Yeah.
And then you'll know, like, oh, if it's sheep DNA, then yeah, it's sheep DNA, and then put it to rest. But just like, brushing it off as that is not good enough.
Yeah. Can you do DNA testing on dry bones?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I'm trying to think of when...
Don't they DNA test fossils?
Do they? I don't know the science of that.
I'll quickly check it out.
Yeah, so Malakhov is far from standing on in his beliefs. Professors of economics at Maikop State University, Ivan Bormutov, shares a similar view. It's his belief that the Nazi regime was sending surveillance expedition into the Caucasus Mountains, in particular the Adygea region, as late as 1944.
DNA is one of the best.
From decomposed human remains. Even after the flesh is decomposed, DNA can often be obtained from demineralized bones. Cool. Yeah. Nice. So Bormutov, however, perhaps erring on the right side of caution, would offer he wasn't sure that the Nazis knew what they were looking for. He would also state, though, perhaps as a caveat to his own skepticism, that regardless of what the truth may be, the remains found in the mountain of Adygea will force you to think. Are you thinking? You're being forced to think right now.
I think so.
Others, though, believe they knew exactly what they were looking for. As the war raged on and the tide was slowly turning against the Third Reich, the Nazis were increasingly throwing resources behind the search for superweapons and advanced technology that could turn the war back in the favor in one quick strike. So much so that as well as searching for advanced ancient technology, they were also studying UFOs and attempting to make contact with aliens so that they might obtain advanced technology. The aforementioned expeditions into the Caucasus region throughout the early 1940s were not a one-off. I mean, the 1940s, that's when E. Bird was doing his thing too, wasn't it?
Around that time, yeah.
Yeah.
No, wasn't it the 60s?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not sure. The Nazi regime would send similar missions to Tibet, Antarctica, and North Africa. They would even travel to the regions once home to the ancient Indus Valley civilization. Basically, their depiction and their interest in such relics in the Indiana Jones movies is completely accurate. Well, not completely accurate, but the interest in such relics, they were like in the Indiana Jones movies, they were hunting for like the Fountain of Youth, the elongated skulls, the Holy Grail, all those sorts of things. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's going on here, and one of them is the bizarre conspiracies of the Lake Ritsa project. And these activities were taking place before the war. As we have written about before, a series of pacts between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union was signed in the run-up to the Second World War. And there are many claims as to the true reason these deals went ahead. And in a world where dual thinking is a necessity, there is probably a degree of truth in all of them. In 1936, the Nazi regime, in an effort to show friendship between themselves and the Soviets, would begin the tunnel project that would connect the Black Sea coast to Lake Ritsa, which resides in the Caucasus region, what is now modern-day Georgia. This would make it possible to draw water from the newly established Ritsa Nature Reserve. And this is where it gets a little strange. So, according to some researchers, the Nazis' real prize, in fact, was the water itself. They believed, according to some, that the water had a special composition. Furthermore, this composition was perfect to make a synthetic blood plasma. Those involved in the project would refer to this apparent mysterious substance as living water. Yes, the video is recording.
Okay, because I thought it made a noise, sorry.
Sorry. She was getting paranoid about the video, and it's rightly so because we have had a video stop. It's okay, I can see it.
Okay, I trust you.
But yeah, those involved in the project would refer to it as living water, and it would be carefully placed into silver containers and then moved by submarine, boat, and plane to Germany, along with the substitute blood liquid, peristin, an oxidation production of adrenaline, and it would allow the Nazis to successfully produce this blood plasma on an industrial scale. So, there's a weird conspiracy there.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I've heard a lot of weird conspiracies around blood plasma.
Yeah. But there is an extra twist to the conspiracy, as there was deaths surrounding this tunneling, and those who oversaw the construction of the tunnel system, once it was complete, their car would plunge into a ravine, killing all of them. So at the end of the project, they were killed. So
did they drive into the ravine?
Well, it was say all we know is that their car plunged into a ravine and they died. Did they do that? Did someone push them off? Was it staged?
Like, if it's true, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, it was suicide.
Yeah.
You know, if you're involved in stuff like that.
Yeah. So, kind of coming to the end here was, according to an article in October 1946 edition of Harper's Magazine, the United States had recovered 50 tons of secret Nazi documents relating to the work and research of their top scientists and weapon designers. Needless to say, along with Operation Paperclip that would transplant hundreds of Nazi scientists to continue their work in America, these documents would assist in building the modern Western world. And that is something that is proven. The U.S., after the war, took a lot of the Nazi scientists and brought them over to their side.
Yeah, there's been evidence of that, right?
Yeah, and I can't remember, there's a very famous one who did quite a lot for us. But, yeah. So, there's a whole bunch of things that in the Nazi documents that they found. Some of the lesser known things was they found over 50,000 different types of dyes, like coloring dyes.
Yeah.
They were faster and better than those in the United States, and many of them the US didn't know how to make, so it pretty much boosted the American dye industry. And
interesting.
all the dyes that are coming out of America for the past 10 years have been from that collection that they got from the German research. But it wasn't just in dyes. The advancement was across the board, and they would achieve highly efficient ways to freeze and preserve food. So they got that too, which would allow submarines to undertake extended missions without surfacing. They got infrared technology, and that would allow Nazi vehicles to travel at full speed at night, and they could see objects as clear as day up to 200 meters ahead. And the infrared technology would also allow tanks to spot targets from 2 miles away. And a German sniper could pick off a man in total blackness. There were, however, also the grim experiments and scientific research that they got, just one of which would speak of freezing patients to the point of death, all the while monitoring every aspect of their bodily functions with no regards for the patient's ultimate well-being. One report spoke of 7 such patients, all of whom died. It later states that the transferring the patient into water in excess of 100 degrees proves preferable. The patient successfully recovers and comes back to life. Grim reading, but important information.
Yeah.
So there was all sorts of experiments and stuff.
It's torturous.
Yeah. Torturous.
Yeah, that's horrible. Did they really test that on humans?
Yeah, there's all sorts of horrible human experiments that they were doing.
Surprised that's on record. It's so horrible.
I'm sure there's even worse stuff on record that we're not even diving into. But kind of coming full circle, is that, coming back to the dolmens, which were dated to around 4,000 to 600 years old based on the pottery and stuff, but some other researchers contend the dates of the actual stone constructions between 10,000 and 25,000 years ago. And what is particularly unique, like we said before, is the 90-degree angles, and there's no sign of a nearby quarry, which is very much kind of how like the pyramids of Egypt were. The stone wasn't quarried where it was put eventually, and there's no signs of how they would have gotten it there. And a lot of scientists and archaeologists suggest that they were carrying these stones on boats down the Nile, but these stones are like so heavy.
Yeah, how would they lift it onto the boat?
Yeah. And to transport that much, it's like so many tons of stone, and it's just actually not physically possible to transport it on a boat of the time. So in Egypt, they still don't really know, and their explanations are kind of not very good. And the same thing here. They don't know where the stone was quarried and how it got to where it was. And yeah, so, we talked about the dwarves, but, they could have been dwarves. We've talked about giants. We've talked about elves. We've talked about hobbits.
Yeah.
Yeti, elongated skull people. Maybe the next is the dwarves. Where are those guys? But yeah, there's also some UFO activity within the Caucasus Mountains, and then basically the rest I have is just some myths and legends, but I think you can go into those yourself. They have like a story similar to a vampire surrounding these things. They have a story surrounding this snow yeti around these mountains, and so there is one last thing, which is the link to the Paracas skull, which are the elongated skulls within Peru. And many mainstream scientists and archaeologists contend the Paracas skulls are a result of an intentional or accidental disfigurement. And go watch our previous video, because we talk about how that the elongated skulls are natural and they were formed within the uterus. There are fetuses, archaeological fetus evidence of babies that haven't been born yet found in the mother's womb with these elongated skulls, which disproves the theory that all elongated skulls are a result of body demorphication. Body
Mortification.
No, that's death. Whatever. Body morphication. Modification.
Yeah.
There it is. So many people on the fringes reject the notion, like us, and not least because of the multiple differences between them and a standard human skull. And one of the differences is the parietal plate, of which a human skull would have two. The Paracas skulls, however, only have one. And this kind of links... it's linked to this story because the DNA tests show that the origins of this parent subspecies is the Caucasus mountain regions between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. And like we talked in the previous episode, the man who was researching this, Forrester, believes that these species migrated from the heart of Europe to Peru thousands of years ago, and that they are a result of a hybrid of different people. And the Caucasus Mountains were important and potential gateway for Babylonian elite or some sort of alien race, and we have all those megalithic monuments and stuff, and when we kind of pull all these strange things together, are they all coincidences? Are they all separate? Or is there something going on there? Yeah.
Very interesting. Never seen those skulls before. Let us know in the comments if you've seen those skulls before. Really interesting.
Never even heard of these skulls. When I was drawing the picture, I just did like a doodle of a constellation. Like I just drew some random, like I closed my eyes and drew some random star dots and then connected them up.
Yeah.
And then when I looked up I was like, okay, let's see if I can find a constellation similar to this. And I looked it up, and it was the Arcturian.
Interesting.
Arcturus, the star of Arcturus. So maybe they're Arcturian.
Yeah. Maybe you're channeling your Arcturian guides.
Don't know if I was channeling guides because they didn't tell me anything, but maybe. So what do you think about this skull? And I mean, we're not surprised by the Nazi involvement. They did have a little hot spot around there. There were briefcases found, and then, you know, linking to these skulls that were found very close by. Do you think the Nazis found some aliens? Do you think these skulls are aliens? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that there's a high chance that they could be aliens. I just would want them to do like DNA, and then you'd know, okay, is it animal, is it human, is it completely different DNA than we've ever seen before?
Yeah, that would be very handy. Someone pick this up.
Yeah, I'm really not sure. Like, I'm very on the fence with it.
Yeah.
Of whether it's like a different type of being, like whether it's an animal that's extinct, that we don't know anymore, that, you know, or whether it is an alien. It looks alien.
And the fact that they're dated only 4,000 years, it's pretty recent in terms of...
Yeah, it could definitely be alien. Like, I'm definitely on the fence with it, though.
Yeah, and it's hard
because if there was like more of them, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard with such small evidence. We just know that there's some strange skulls. We can't really explain them, and there hasn't been enough testing on them. But hopefully we get some answers in the future.
Yeah, that'd be so exciting. Hopefully more people start making awareness around it, and that will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, really
Come
cool.
to the end of the episode. This one was kind of an out there one in terms of there's a lot of conspiracy in here, but the skulls you can really count on as a concrete skull and just a question mark in history. And, you know, some people link the Nazi activity to the skulls, but that isn't proven. The Nazi activity was proven in that area. We know the Nazis had a lot of connections to occult stuff, and you know, had some really strange experiments going on where the two connected. Who knows? It is kind of a coincidence that they were found so close together, and that this region has even has stories of UFO abductions, but these UFO abduction stories were just first-hand accounts. You know, there wasn't much of an investigation into them. They were just people kind of telling their stories. So I didn't really bring them up here, but there is a lot of stuff going on around here. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah, thank you.
I am heading back to London in a couple days, so we will be taking a Christmas break, and hopefully we'll be getting back into it maybe the week of the 28th and getting back into our episodes.
We might not see you again until 2023.
We might not, but hopefully maybe we
might
can
slip
squeeze
one in.
an episode in.
That would be good.
2023. That's crazy. Should we do another 2023 prediction video?
Maybe that will be our next video. Sorry, I'm so hungry, and when I'm hungry I yawn.
Yeah, so yeah, we could do that, because I mean we never even really did a follow-up on our 2022 predictions.
Maybe our next video could be like a end of the year roundup, maybe.
Yeah. Roundup. Don't buy it. Don't support Bill Gates.
We've had a big year for the podcast. I feel like we've really hit on some great topics. We upgraded to video and been a bit more professional, a bit more consistent, and diving deep into more, I don't know, what would you say? Like more historical.
Yeah, we kind of started a lot on more of a looser framework. And
Yeah,
then-
we was more... Oops, bottle's gone down. Yeah, originally we wanted to create a spiritual podcast, but it's just sort of found its own... It's like it's gone its own path. It's like it's gone its own way. And yeah, I feel like it's really working.
Yeah, I love it.
So it's been an interesting year, but I think either the next episode we could do a roundup or we could do another round of predictions. Would be fun.
Yeah, or both.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Thank you so much for watching. So
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
yeah, Merry Christmas, and also Happy Hanukkah, I guess, and also whatever other
Yeah.
holidays
Yule.
you're celebrating. Yeah, is it Yule time?
Yeah.
Is that the
winter solstice.
pagan version?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And Helki's doing her Vlogmas
Yeah.
till the
Keep
end of
up
the month.
with the Vlogmas.
Yeah.
25
and
days.
I think that my Kickstarter will still be up for the comic book project that I'm working on. I think it'll be going till the end of the month. We have, I think, just under 20 days left for the Kickstarter. So if you guys like sci-fi, high sci-fi, and magical powers, then go check it out. It is called the Riftwalker Saga. And we will see you after Christmas and after the 25th.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay. Bye.